Hello everyone, my name is Jimmy, and today I wanted to talk to you about a project I use every day called GitHub. Now, if you're a professional programmer like myself, you're probably already familiar with GitHub. However, if you aren't, then I'd highly recommend that you learn and use GitHub if you want to become a professional developer, because it's a really popular tool that many open source projects use to host their code base. So if you know how to use GitHub, then you'll have access to those repositories, as well as you'll be able to download the code, use it, and modify it, and even contribute back to those platforms. So on screen right now, you can see an example of one of those. This one is TensorFlow. It's Google's machine learning library for Python. And you can see here that here are a couple of folders and files, and all of these are the source code to TensorFlow. As well as here's the README on how to use it, how to install it, and just a lot of resources about TensorFlow itself. Now, it's not only projects like TensorFlow. Like, let's say if you're a web developer, you can find things like jQuery, and that's also on GitHub. So here's all the files, and similarly, here's how to get involved and how to build and use jQuery. And there's many other repositories just like this. So today I wanted to give you a quick dive into just using GitHub and creating your first repository, as well as committing code to that repository. So what you'll need before we start is you'll need to make sure you have your own account on GitHub first. But once you do that, you can click on this plus button up here to create a new repository. Now, first you'll have to give it a name. I'm just gonna give it a name of Plasma as like a code name. And next you'll have to give it a description. Well, this is optional, but you can say something like, "This is my awesome project," just so that you'll remember what this project is for. You can also make it public or private if you want to make it open for the rest of the world to see, or just keep it closed just to yourself and a few others that you choose. I'm going to leave this one public because I want the world to see this one. And you can also choose if you wanted to start with a README file and a gitignore file or a license file. I'm not going to explain a lot of those in detail right now since I'm trying to keep this video short. But for this one, I'll just check that I wanted to start with a README file as well as an MIT license file, so other people can use it for commercial purposes without suing me if something goes wrong. So I'll click on Create Repository, and just in a couple of seconds, you can see that my repository has been created on GitHub already. And you can see the two files that it created with it, the README file and the license file. So if I click on one of those, you can see what's inside that file, and GitHub also has this nice feature where for licenses it shows you exactly what you can do with this. So once you've created that repository on GitHub, you can also download it to your computer so that you can modify the files locally, and from there you can push the code back into GitHub. Now, to do this, you'll need an application that can work with Git itself. For this demo, I'm going to use the terminal or the command line. However, there is also graphical tools such as GitHub Desktop or SourceTree, but I'm going to choose the terminal because that's the one that I'm most familiar with. And I believe that if you want to be a serious developer, then you should become very familiar with the terminal. It's not that complicated to learn, and it gives you a lot more power for doing various tasks. So I'm going to bring out the terminal here, and you'll also need to make sure that you have Git installed if you're going to choose this way. And so once you have Git installed, you can run the command git clone, and then you need to pass in the URL. So in order to get the URL, you can click on this link here, clone or download, and you can clone from this one using HTTPS. For me, I have locked my account with a SSH key, so I need to use SSH, but it's pretty much the same or similar steps. So I'll copy this link, paste it here, and as I mentioned, I use a SSH key to protect my account. with. So I'm gonna have to put in a passphrase. You may or may not need to do this yourself. So just give me 1 second while I get that. Okay, so now that I put in my passphrase, it continued and now it's downloaded this repository into my computer. Now we can see that that successfully happened by opening that. And you can see the files here in this folder. So there's the license file and there's the README file. From here we can start manipulating the files just like any other folder on your computer. So I'm going to start adding files using my favorite text editor, Atom. However, you can use whatever IDE or whatever tools that you would normally use for your projects. So I'm going to open this up in Atom. So Atom is an open source text editor created by GitHub, and it's pretty powerful and flexible. And for here, let's create a new file. So you can add code or you can add text, just again like a normal folder. Here I will say important.txt. This is an important file. Okay, so now we have this new file inside our project. And you can also modify files. So this is the README. So I'll modify by adding some other lines saying this. It already has this. What a wonderful README. Just to have some other text here. So I'll save that. And if you go back to the command line, I'm going to go into the Plasma folder. You can see that the file is there, important.txt. And then we can also use Git to verify that new things have been changed. So if I say git status, you can see that readme.md has been modified, and there is a new file, important.txt. So in order to push this up to GitHub, I'm going to first have to stage these changes and commit them before pushing that commit onto GitHub. I'm using a lot of Git terminology here. Don't worry about it too much. Make sure definitely to learn more about this as you continue using it. But for now, just remember that these are the steps that you have to do in order to commit code into GitHub. So I'm going to use the command git add to add these two files, important.txt as well as readme. So now if I do git status, you can see that these are the changes that I'm going to commit, readme.md and important.txt. Now to commit that, I can say git commit, and it's always good practice to add a commit message along with your commit that's descriptive and so that other people can know what you did inside of this commit. Or if you ever look back at the history in the future, you can also be reminded of what you changed here. So I'm going to say add important.txt and updated readme.md. Enter, and now we've committed this locally. So if I say git log, you can see that there's two commits here. This is the first time I created the repo, and this is the one that we just made now. To add this file and update this file. But if you refresh the repository on GitHub, you can notice that only the first commit is there. We still haven't added those new files yet, and that's because the changes that we made are still on our local computer, and we need to push that back to GitHub. Now, in order to do that, you have to say the command git push origin master. This says we're pushing it back to the origin, which in this case happens to be GitHub, onto the master branch, which is another Git thing that I'm going to skim over for now. So hit that. I'm going to put in my passphrase, and done. So now it's pushed successfully to GitHub. So if I refresh this page, you can see that there's two commits, and the last commit is what I just said, adding important.txt and readme, that was a minute ago. And here's the new important.txt file. If I click on that, this is an important file. As well as you can see the updated readme here. So that was a really basic introduction to GitHub. As I said, GitHub has a lot more powerful features and is just a really valuable tool to know in general. So if you're interested in this at all, there's a bunch of resources online that you can check out. I'll list a couple of them in the description box down below. And don't forget to leave a comment if you have any questions for me. And thanks for watching the video, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.